we're going to talk today about how to give your Neo4j project some superpowers. My name is Jennifer-Reif. I'm a developer relations engineer at Neo4j. Feel free to follow our Neo4j account on Twitter. We post a lot of things, updates to libraries or events that are going on, or cool technologies we're working with or integrations we're building, things like that. So if you don't recognize the image there in the upper right, that's from Super Smash Brothers video game. So we're going to give your Neo4j project an extra boost and step up the game on that. So we're going to take kind of your average characters for this, and we're going to give them a boost. So we're going to make them pretty super and give them extra powers. So we can do that using the APOC library, which I will show. So there are a variety of ways to extend Neo4j. With the release of Neo4j 3.0 a few years back, that gave us the ability to have user-defined procedures where you could write custom code. You can write it in any JVM language. You deploy that to the database in a package, and you can access those procedures that you write by applications using Cipher. So you can kind of see the diagram there on the right-hand side. You have your application running against the Neo4j engine, and that talks back and forth with your user-defined procedures that you create and package up. So what is APOC? It was not named after the Matrix character. It was originally Neo4j's package of components with one of the very early releases of Neo4j. And now it's kind of referred to as the awesome procedures on Cipher. Basically just an extension, I say, but it's the main standard extension utility library for Neo4j. There's around 550 procedures, functions, and other things involved in that now. Supports both the 3.x and 4.x series of Neo4j databases, and tons of users use this, anywhere from developers to customers, partners to etc. Anybody, community members, you name it. And there's more information out on the Neo4j labs page under the APOC project. You can find out a lot more about the history, the documentation, and other sorts of things there. So a little bit of history. I mentioned that the 3.0 Neo4j provided the capability to have user-defined procedures. And this is really where the idea of APOC, the APOC library was born. So this was an opportunity for Michael Hunger at the time, and it's grown quite a bit since then, to add the missing utilities that he really felt were needed and desired with Neo4j, but that Neo4j didn't offer out of the box at that time. So it grew very, very quickly, started anywhere around 50 to 100, and of course, now we can see we have somewhere around 550 of those. Oh, okay. It dropped out and reshared my screen there. This is a very active open source project. So there's tons of contributors, community members, partners, customers, etc. It's open and welcome to the public for contributions. So there's lots of involvement there. Very, very active, several releases, improvements, updates, new features being added in all the time. There are these three ways of running Neo4j. The APOC library is built in. So it's provided out of the box with Neo4j Sandbox, Neo4j Desktop, Neo4j Aura. However, any way that you run Neo4j, you can actually drop in the APOC jar from GitHub into the plugins folder, and I'll show that here in just a second. And you can run APOC anywhere that you run Neo4j. So to install it on desktop, I will actually show this live here in a second. You can go in under managing your database instance, as Lou showed earlier in the Neo4j desktop session. Go in under that plugins tab and just install the plugin that you want to, in this case, APOC. And there's tons of things provided inside APOC. We're going to kind of do a very quick, brief overview of some of the highlights of this library. However, again, there's tons of this. We could spend hours going through all of the APOC procedures. So we'll just kind of cover some highlights, anything from data integration, importing and exporting data, refactoring your graphs, background jobs, and time to live procedures, and tons more provided with that. So learning just kind of the basics of APOC or digging into kind of some more details, there is actually a help procedure involved in APOC. It's provided with it. You can call apoc.help and provide a keyword. So if you want to look at all the procedures that have CSVs or that deal with CSVs, or if you want to look at all the procedures that help refactor graph data or other sorts of capabilities, you can just pass in whatever you might be looking for, and it will bring back the results of the APOC procedures and functions that are provided for that. We also have some videos out on our YouTube channel that kind of do a walkthrough process of how to use particular procedures or functions in kind of real world, real life scenarios, dealing with real data, showing how to import that data, mistakes, potential pitfalls, things like that, how to go about handling configurations as well. Again, full documentation provided on our neo4j.com/docs/labs. And my colleague Mark Needham has done quite a bit of work on this to improve the experience of the documentation, to make it more thorough and more helpful. And of course, if you have any comments or feedback on that, there is now a feedback form on the bottom of the pages. So you can, in real time, provide us that feedback, and we try to get those updated pretty quickly to help you out. There's a browser guide out there too, so you can go into Neo4j browser and type in the :play APOC, and that will kind of do some hands-on walkthrough of exercises and how to use different APOC procedures. And then, of course, if you have any questions, hit some stumble blocks, or are interested in learning more about the library, feel free to go out to our Neo4j community forum and ask your questions there. Someone from the community or from Neo4j staff or partners, etc., are more than happy to answer questions or to open up discussions there too. So with that, let's kind of switch, and I will do a little bit starting on my demo. Ooh, yep, install. Here's an update. Okay. So this is, zoom this in just a little bit so it's easier to see. So I have my database here, and if I go under the plugins folder, I already have APOC installed. So all you have to do is just install it from there. And then there's a couple of things that it does when I hit that install button. Is it going on? Did it load? Oh, it did. It just went to my other screen. Sorry about that. So it opens up. It drops the APOC jar into the plugins folder. Of course, Windows and Linux installations will do something similar, just look a little bit different. But it drops that APOC jar in. And then it also does a couple of other things. So in the configuration, I'll go ahead and bring this back up. In the configuration, it changes and does and adds APOC to unrestrict, where you can run APOC procedures. So you would need to do this if you created your own extension. But it will open this setting up so that you can run APOC procedures. And then one other thing that's kind of nice to note is that we have our own configuration files for various extensions and integrations. So the APOC is one. If we just open that, I have a couple of things in here. Hopefully they're not too hard to see. I just have opened up where it will allow APOC to read files for import and export on them. So nothing too major on this, but you can add all kinds of different configurations and such in the apoc.conf as well. So with that, let's open up our Neo4j browser, and I want to show the apoc.help. And I will zoom this up so it's easier to see. Much better. So we can do our call apoc.help, and we can pass in any sort of string, a keyword phrase that we want to look for. So let's say I want to look for anything that has to do with refactoring. And so we can see all of the APOC procedures that deal with refactor. Looks like all of them are apoc.refactor, but that's not necessarily the case. Or I can look for something that deals with JSON data, do a search based on that. So you can see we've got an apoc.convert, we've got an APOC export, there's a load JSON, etc. So it'll list and show you all of the procedures that are available. Functions are listed below procedures. And then it gives you kind of a description, the signature of the procedure or function, roles and rights, etc. So basic information about how to get into that. So let's go back to our slides here. And we'll dive straight into some different APOC procedures and how to use them. So we're going to start with some data integration. There's lots of possibilities here. So Neo4j connects really well to anything that has a JDBC connection. And so relational databases, Cassandra, all of these other options for databases, MongoDB, Couchbase, Elasticsearch, other Neo4j instances, all of that, you can import and export data back and forth between those. It also handles a variety of data formats, so JSON, XML, CSV, XLS, etc., as well as Cipher and GraphML. So all kinds of different data formats, as well as just various types of data stores. You can talk back and forth with Neo4j or from Neo4j. More information on that, what's available, what's provided out of the box, again, in the documentation linked there at the bottom. So under the import section. First, let's take a look at the apoc.load.json. This is probably one of my favorite procedures. It deals really well with handling web APIs as well as JSON files, and provides a variety of capabilities. So JSON path, if you want to extract sub-document structures out of your JSON file, or if you need to stream the JSON back, if you have a massive document and you want to read each of those objects as separate lines, it can stream that JSON, so you're not having to load the entire JSON file into memory. And it does also handle compressed data. So if you're dealing with zipped files or any other sort of compression, it will read those files as well. So more information on that is in the documentation there under the load JSON. And we'll look at an example here. So one of our favorites is to use the Stack Overflow API. This is a sample query. It's also, or this is the sample of what the data you will get back from the Stack Overflow API. The sample query is in the next slide. But if we want to query what are all the Neo4j questions on Stack Overflow, you can see we've got a tag looking for Neo4j, and then it will bring back that data in this JSON format. And using the apoc.load.json, we can actually iterate through this and import the data into Neo4j. So the query we can use to do that is something like this. So we'll have the URL to access the API. We're only going to focus on the most recent 100 Neo4j questions, because I think there are thousands upon thousands out there as of now. And so we don't want to overwhelm all at once. You can, of course, page through all those results and load everything in if you so choose. But just for today, we're going to stick with 100 just to keep it small. Then we can pass that URL into our apoc.load.json procedure. It'll yield back that full JSON object, and we're going to unwind that object. So create questions here in this next paragraph, and then create the users who asked those questions, and then create that relationship, and then finally loop through all of the tags. So with that, let's switch over and look at how we would actually do that. And where did my browser go? There we go. Oh, but I need to grab the query first. So again, just straight out of the documentation, it's provided there. You can tweak as you so choose. And let's zoom this up so we can see a little bit better. So we have our 100 questions that we're pulling from Stack Overflow. We're pulling that URL into our apoc.load.json procedure. We're unwinding that JSON object that comes back, creating questions, looping through the tags, and creating nodes for each tag, and then looping the answers and linking to questions, as well as answerers, so the people who provided those answers, and then linking back your owner who asked the question initially. So we can load that information in, and it'll create 355 nodes for us and 515 relationships. So we have some sample data in there, and now we can look at, we have some questions out there, and then just pull back random sets of things. And let's just limit to about 50, just for the sake of time. And so we get our tags. So these are all of the tags for questions. Our questions are here in purple. And then we have users who asked those questions. We have answers that were posted with those. You can see there's quite a few questions linked to this Cipher tag. So lots of questions out there for Cipher that we can help with. So that just kind of gives us a sampling of how we can load the data with that apoc.load.json procedure. And again, more information out in the documentation for that. Okay, so APOC also does really well handling very large transactions. It does this really well with apoc.periodic.iterate. This kind of allows you to separate the issue into two separate statements. So you'll have a driving statement saying, this is the data I want to do something with, or I want to execute an update, or I want to load or read through the data, etc. And then you'll have an executing statement. So for each one of those results you come back with in the driving statement, it'll do something with that. So I want to load this, I want to update it, I want to refactor, etc. So this will allow you to kind of batch these statements and group them. You can run in parallel if you don't have locking statements or conflicting statements. And then it also handles retry. So if for some reason the statement doesn't go through or has problems wrapping up, it will also do an automatic retry for you to see if another time works better. This procedure is really, really helpful for importing. I found large amounts of data as well as refactoring. It gives you that ability to have that driving statement and then having an operation statement to execute against that driving statement. So more information on that, again, linked in the documentation there below. And so here's an example of this. We have our call apoc.periodic.iterate. We can, in this case, we're just going to do something really simple. We're going to create 1,000,000 nodes. So unwind numbers 1 to 1,000,000 as the ID, return each one of those. For each one of those numbers you get back, we're going to create a node with an ID of that number, and then run this in batch sizes of 10,000. So it won't actually run 1,000,000 statements. It will batch these up and group them into chunks of 10,000. And then since these are non-locking, non-conflicting statements, we can run these in parallel. It's just doing a creation of a node. So it's not doing lookups or updates or creating relationships, etc. And so we can run these in parallel. And then you can see we've got kind of some results back. So let's actually take a look at that really quickly live. Bring back our browser here. And so if we do call apoc.periodic.iterate, and then we're going to pass it first our driving statement. So unwind the range of numbers from 1 to 123, 123, 1,000,000 as ID, return the ID, the number back, and then we need our execution statement. So create a node with an ID of the ID value from that number, and then we can provide it some configuration. And there's a full list of all the configurations that are available in the docs, but we're just going to keep it simple here. We're going to do a batch size of 10,000, and we're going to run these in parallel so that they'll finish faster and we don't have conflicting statements, so we can do this. All right, and I think that all looks good. Okay, let's run it. So this will take a couple minutes to complete. It is running 1,000,000 nodes, but this kind of gives us a good idea of how it's kind of batching that information up. And again, it's not going to run 1,000,000 statements. It's going to batch those and group them into 10,000, and then run each of those batches for us. And when this completes, I think we end up with, somewhere around 100 batches. So total created 1,000,000, committed all 100, worked, all 100 batches worked, nothing failed, no errors, etc. And so now if we go look at our database, we have 1,355,000. Remember, we still have our Stack Overflow API data in there as well. That's the 355 nodes there. So we have 1,000,000 plus the 355, and we have still our 513 relationships. So all that's looking pretty good. Let's go back over and jump into the next thing here. Okay, so now some utilities. This is a very, very broad area. There's tons of utility things you can do, but we'll just kind of cover some basic overarching categories, and then you can dive into more of the documentation for details. So there are several text functions. You can make lots of pretty word art with APOC. And some of this stuff, some things are provided, some text functions are provided in Cipher, but then there are things that are not provided. So this is, again, where APOC is extending the functionality of what's already there. So we can do things like splitting, replacing, doing regex, formatting, capitalizing, doing the LPAD or RPAD, changing cases, creating hex codes, and then encoding or decoding different hash values. So again, lots of opportunities here. I've used, I know at least the MD5 to create, decode, and encode. Some LPAD and RPAD type stuff as well. So lots of options here. And of course, if you see something there you need and it's not there yet, please do feel free to submit a PR or to submit a feature request. We're happy to add those and get that in there for you. We also have some collection functions. So again, some of this stuff is provided in Cipher, and then APOC just takes it one step further and provides some additional functionalities. So sums, averages, partitioning, sorting, indexes, having disjunct or unions on various values, inserting or removing and pulling random, all of that, again, provided with APOC. So that's there as well. Okay, map functions. These, you can do the same thing basically with maps. So you can create maps from nodes, pairs, lists, or values. You can merge different maps. You can change your keys or remove keys. The apoc.map.clean is very helpful, especially when you're importing kind of messy or unknown data. I'll show an example of that here in just a second. And then the group by there as well. So with the apoc.map.clean, you can specify the map that you want to clean up. So if you're bringing in values for import, then you can specify, I want to ignore these certain keys or clean out these certain keys. And then I want to ignore specific value types that you find in this map structure. So let's go over and look at that really quickly. And so we can do we're going to create our map here. So just going to say this. We just have some random values. And then I'm going to create one here. We'll often have NA as a value, right, coming in from various data sources. So here's our map here. And then we're going to do this apoc.map.clean procedure. I can type correctly, and then we're going to give it our map. And then we want to specify the keys that we want to get rid of, if any. In this case, let's say we want to get rid of our key of A. We're just going to ignore that one entirely. We don't want to import that. And then we want to ignore specific values. So we definitely want to get rid of any NA values. That's not really anything valuable or helpful to our data. And then we might want to get rid of null values, even though we don't have any in this particular map. That's also a really helpful thing. And let's just start with that. And so let's run that and see what we get. So we just get back our foo and our bar values, because that's all that's left by the time we remove the A and by the time we remove our NA value. We could also say we want to add and get rid of our bar value as well. And so that will leave us with just foo. So really helpful importing unclean data or kind of handling various values and cleaning that stuff out. So again, more information provided in the documentation there at the bottom if you're interested. Okay, JSON. So converting different values. You can take things to JSON or from JSON, converting things from strings, lists, maps, etc., back and forth between JSON. You can deal with tree structures. You can get or set different JSON properties. So this is really, really helpful, especially when you're dealing with lots of web APIs, or maybe even flat files and things like that that use a lot of JSON. So again, lots of flexibility here when you deal with JSON types. Graph refactoring. So if you want to change the way your graph looks, so your data model is changed, or you need to update something across the entire graph, this is where something like this comes in very handy. So different kinds of aggregation functions. APOC.refactor. You can do this for nodes or relationships. So you can clone nodes, merge nodes, extract, collapse, and categorize relationships. So you can change the two are from nodes, you can invert the relationship direction, and you can set the types. So if you need to change that information on the fly as your graph or your data model changes, you can absolutely do that with these procedures. So one particular example, we want to see how we want to merge nodes. In this case, we have two duplicate nodes here of Jim. We have him in our database twice, and so we want to condense that down and create just one unique user or person here in this case. So we're going to do a match on persons to look through all our database and say, I want to find all of my persons, and our unique key or our technical key here is the email address. So that's what's going to make a person unique. We should have only one person connected with an email address. And we're going to collect all those people together where you have the groupings where you have a person that multiple people that have the same email address. And then you're going to call the apoc.refactor.merge nodes on those lists, and it will yield back this change data. So now you've basically merged those values into a single unique node there. So we got rid of our duplicates for us. You can also, Cipher does not yet have the ability to handle dynamic labels or dynamic passing in of values, especially when you're dealing with labels. So in this case, we want to take the genre property off of our movie node over here, and we want to turn that, whatever the value is for this property, we want to turn that into a label. So to do that, we're going to look through our movie database, match on movies, call the apoc.create.add_labels, and then grab each one of our movie nodes that come back, and we're going to take the node genre property, and we're going to make that a label. And then pull back the node. We're going to remove the property because we don't need that as a property anymore. So we'll go ahead and remove it and then return the node. So we get this out of the other side. So we've taken our genre property and we've turned it into a label on our node. Okay, let's talk a little bit about APOC triggers. So dealing with kind of background jobs, I want something to happen when an event goes through, etc. So these are provided with APOC as well. So you can pause, resume, list, remove. You can have them execute before or after a commit, depending on what you need. And so this is, it calls a Cipher statement to run. And there's lots of different parameters out there, more information on documentation, and there is a Medium blog article there at the bottom of this slide. So this is utility functions. You can do lots of things with that, and all of these triggers are stored in the graph. So that means that even if you shut down, restart, restore your database, etc., those come back with it. So they are saved and kind of continue to run even when you have to do a restore. So that's all available there as well. Time to live. This one's kind of a fun one. If you need nodes to expire after a certain date or a time length, you can do that with the time to live procedures. You do have to enable a configuration there at the top. The apoc.ttl.enabled equals true, so you'll have to add that to the apoc.conf. And then what it basically does is it creates a label of TTL, and it'll create a property of TTL for all of the nodes that you want to add that to. And then you can call the apoc.date.expire or expire in. So I want to expire nodes after a certain time period, or I want to expire nodes after a certain date. And then you'll run that, and it'll create an index on the TTL label and TTL property. And what that will do is it will have a background job that executes by default every 60 seconds, but that time is configurable, so you can have it run once a day or every minute, etc. And it will run this procedure in the background. So looking for those nodes that have a TTL label on them, where the TTL property is past the time. So the time that you want it to expire, it's over and done. These need to go away. And so it'll delete those in batches and expire those nodes for you. Aggregation functions. So lots of stuff here. So you can deal with collections in Cipher, but pulling out different pieces of that so you're not having to pass the entire collection through your queries, it gets a little tricky. And so APOC provides some of this capability. So you can pull the first and last values, you can do medians, percentiles, statistics, etc. So lots of things dealing with different slicing and dicing of your collections of values that you might be pulling back. And then you can actually create your own custom Cipher procedures and functions. So you can do that with the apoc.custom.asProcedure or asFunction, depending on what you want to do. And you can define your function and what you need to pass into it and what you expect to return back from it. And that will basically, every time you call your new custom procedure, it will run a Cipher query that you've defined. So you can kind of see here, we have a procedure that we're going to call neighbors, and we're going to pass it a name, a string value for name, and then it's going to return a node back for us. We're going to execute this Cipher statement. So it's going to match persons with the name of whatever value we pass into our procedure up here, and it's going to look for another node on the other side, so our neighbor nodes in this case, and return those neighbor nodes. So when we actually make the call for our procedure, call custom.neighbors, we're going to pass in a string value of a name, and it's going to pull back that neighbor node, who are all of Joe's neighbors in this case. So lots of cool functionality there. Lots of fun probably to create your own procedures and functions too. Okay, so I've mentioned that this library continues to grow and improve. So these are just some of the things that have come in the last few weeks. So apoc.import.csv, exporting Cipher. You can do a Cipher script export. You can load XLS or export XLS now. Before, I think it was just CSV, but it didn't deal specifically with Excel. The apoc.graph.from document is JSON structures, but it follows particular rules in certain JSON structures. And then you can actually now do an import-export round trip. So it will handle going export and import all in one, kind of back and forth for you. And then, of course, with Neo4j 4.0, we have the multi-DB, which gives you now a new system database. And so there are some procedures and functions in there to access some features on that new system database. But of course, much more improved. You can check out the documentation or check out the GitHub library as well. And again, if you want to give us feedback, feel free to report some issues or contribute to the library, either with feature requests or PRs, however you're most comfortable with that. We would love to hear from you and try to improve and build in more functionality here. And then, of course, if you have questions, hit some roadblocks, or just want to ask about some certain things, the community forum is always there. We have lots of people monitoring that. Again, tons of people use APOC, so this is a channel that is very helpful if you want to find information on certain things or how to do certain things and structure that. So with that, that wraps up our presentation.